Welcome back to Yaffee Live. This is Chattanooga's Smart Talk Radio. Glad you're joining the show today. Don't forget to like the Yaffee Facebook page. Follow me on X at Yaffee or Instagram at Yaffee Live. So our friends at the Tennessee Conservative recently reported on the breaking story of a Belmont University official caught on camera admitting to harboring illegal alien students and deliberately pushing DEI policies through crafty rebranding. You know, they're trying to be sneaky. So we got to talk about this and more right now with Brandon Lewis, who is with the Tennessee Conservative, which you can read anytime at TennesseeConservativeNews.com. Brandon, how are you today, sir?
Outstanding, sir. Glad to be here.
So, let's talk about what are being called the Belmont bombshells, a couple of different things that came out of these videos and some other things as well. What do you think about all this?
Well, it's kind of it's a repeat of a theme, and that is, here's the theme: liberals basically put forward racism in some new package. Right? It happens every 10 years. When people catch on to the fact that it's just racism repackaged, they change the name of the thing, right? And so this is what Belmont University is once again doing. And the thing that tends to rub people the wrong way is the fact that, you know, they get federal funding, they get state funding through the lottery scholarship. And I have long said to conservative Republican lawmakers in the state of Tennessee that I don't understand as a red state why we continue to fund and subsidize these Democrat factories that corrupt our youth. But Belmont's a perfect example. And basically, in an email from April, they were asking university faculty to vote for a nominee to serve on the Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Committee, which isn't allowed. There was an official curriculum proposal form requiring faculty to write a diversity impact statement to justify how any course proposals or revisions will include perspectives from diverse folks, etc. And then finally, there was a campus-wide email from the college president claiming they have been unfairly portrayed and they were not engaging in any deceptive or illegal activity, yet we know this. And finally, Andy Ogle says, you know, that it's just a DEI propaganda machine and nothing else. And his own chief of staff admitted they created HUB, which is just another word salad for the same thing. And, you know, he said that DEI is not Christian. It's a racist framework construction by atheist ideologues. And, you know, it's sad to watch these once Christian institutions completely abandon scriptural precepts, but we see it all the time. We even saw it, you know, here in Chattanooga with a lot of faith-based schools during COVID. It's just amazing how far these institutions have strayed from their core original founding.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Even before a lot of the DEI stuff, a lot of the elite universities that started as Christian universities, like you said, I mean, that was why they existed, totally have abandoned that years and years later. So you're exactly right on that. Now, one of the bombshells, I guess, is it shows an official curriculum proposal, and it's a form requiring faculty to write a diversity impact statement to justify how any course proposals or revisions will, quote, include perspectives from diverse and or historically underrepresented populations. And, of course, this means that any new or revised classes must be tailored to include DEI ideology or risk being rejected by Belmont. So, I mean, that's pretty explicit what they're still doing there.
Well, it is. I mean, and they're not even really trying to hide it. And most of the time, when you look at bad things that happen in schools, we see 10% of it. I mean, stuff that finally gets to the point where an institution is failing or some kind of illegal activity that's actually reported gets, you know, to across the finish line and it's not settled or swept underneath the rug. And so I think they thought that they were going to do this without anybody ever noticing, but folks are starting to catch on.
Yeah, now you talk about people catching on. You know, we talk about the bad news of what's going on in some of the universities, but you guys did report on some good news where Nashville K through 12 schools have cut their DEI policies.
Yeah, I mean, the state institutions know that the hand of justice is a lot more swift, and so you're seeing these state institutions take things out. But, you know, it'd be like if you went to often it's like, okay, we're going to put our kids in a school where it's so racist that we have to even invent these rules and enforce them. Well, the problem is, like, teaching this stuff it's not like pieces of paper do it, humans do it. And so if you've got a culture or an institution that's populated by these leftist folks that agree with all this, and you tell them they can't do it, well, that's all well and good, and they may rip up the pieces of paper, and they may shuffle around the titles and reassign people. But to me, if you've got the same humans in the schools that were okay with this previously and preaching it, like, all that's going to come out in the classroom. I mean, these people, these kids are around adults. They're very impressionable, and, they end up being like the teachers in many respects. I mean, you can't put a kid in a room with an adult and them not model the behavior eventually and figure out what's okay and what isn't. And so my chief worry is, even though a lot of these organizations, even like Vanderbilt, et cetera, are doing all this stuff and trying to get by with it, even when you catch them and root it out, if the same people are there, you're going to have basically the same situation.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. I'm speaking with Brandon Lewis, who is the founder of the Tennessee Conservative. You can always read these stories at TennesseeConservativeNews.com. He joins me every Thursday on the show. And, of course, they always post the podcast of this segment, and we do as well on our Facebook page, Talk Radio 102.3. Kind of staying on the theme of education here, Brandon. You guys have a story as well where the Tennessee Board of Education presented with an initiative to drop high school foreign language requirements. Talk about this.
I think it's absolutely wonderful. I mean, I don't know about you, but if you surveyed everybody who took a foreign language in high school and then put someone who speaks that language fluently in front of them and asked them to converse, I bet 98% of people can't do it. It's just a complete waste of money and time for folks, unless you're going to really make a serious immersive study of it. So I was glad to see that the Tennessee Board of Education had a proposal. Of course, not everybody was for it, but it would eliminate this so that people could take more math, science, trades, etc. And, of course, Dr. Ina Maxwell, who was appointed to the board by Cameron Sexton, questioned whether the change would leave students without an opportunity to learn about other cultures. And it amazes me. We constantly see our Republicans appoint these people that have leftist worldviews. Penny Schwinn was the perfect example as the head of education in Tennessee, and her record was terrible. She was the one that pushed out that universal child wellness check where the government was going to call your kids, even if they weren't in school, to see how they were psychologically and emotionally doing.
Oh, dear God.
Yes, I mean, it was huge. I mean, and that's the kind of people and that they keep sticking into these institutions, and they went, well, I wonder why it's not improving. Well, how can it? And so, I think this is additionally a good thing because, we recently reported that the English language scores have barely budged in the state of Tennessee. We've only got 38% of kids that are proficient in English, reading and writing in English, their native tongue. And so, to me, you should be reading and writing proficient by about fourth grade. I mean, that's really where I can remember my foundations coming in. In fifth grade, I could write 4 or 5 pages. Like it was in well punctuated, good structured sentences. We just seem to be losing that. Like people are making it all the way to high school without a fourth grade education. And so I think they need to continue to whittle away all of these ancillary courses of any description until we get the fundamentals. And finally, I would say I would love to see it, although it would probably be skipped over, that if your student isn't doing well in the fundamentals, that they can't take not extracurricular activities maybe, but they can't take extracurricular courses, things that are not core. If they can't read, they can't write, they can't do basic mathematics, we don't need them in other courses that are, that are not related to the core.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I find it weird. Well, they're going to lose an opportunity to learn about other cultures. Isn't that why world history exists? Isn't that something that's required in school right now, at least for 1 grade, world history? So you're going to learn, even if that is a main priority, you're going to learn about that in other classes. I never saw foreign language as the place to learn about that kind of thing.
Yeah, and there's not a whole lot of, there's some cultural understanding, right? You take a Spanish class, you have to wear a sombrero, they give you a Spanish name or whatever else, and maybe you learn a handful of things. But it's primarily about memorization and writing structure and speaking structure. And you don't really get a lot of culture exposure in a foreign language course anyway. And so I think I think it's just a smoke screen, and educators hate change, and I'm sure there's an entire foreign language teachers lobby that is like, oh gosh, if they make it to where high school kids can actually focus on things that are helpful to them instead of helpful to my job, as a Spanish teacher or a French teacher or whatever else, like I may not be employed as a high school teacher because a lot of kids are going to opt out of that. I mean, a lot. I remember that being one of my worst and least favorite subjects, and I, graduated magna cum laude. I hated foreign language, and luckily, as a business undergraduate, I didn't have to have a foreign language. And I had a buddy of mine, Sean Bible. He had to take one for his legal degree, and he said, "Well, I just thought I'd take the easiest thing." And at the time, at University of Georgia, they had Swahili, and so he took the Swahili. And he said, I can say hello and I can say 2 or 3 other things, but I spent 2 years in that course, and that's it. And so that tends to be the carbon copy story of most students.
So would this keep it as an elective where you could choose to be a part of it like any other elective? Is that kind of the idea?
They're not getting rid of it. I think they're just not making it compulsory. But I would think the moment they make things not compulsory, if you got 2 Spanish teachers in a high school, you're probably going to have 1. After this goes through, because I just don't see, this is not something that people there's a reason they have to make it mandatory. Most people don't want to do it.
Well, and you make a good point. We got rid of things like shop class to do foreign language, and I think for your future it might be more important to go to shop class. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that, or teach more economics instead of like 1 semester your senior year on economics, maybe like a full year of that or something.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great if people understood the mechanics of how government and economics works at a fundamental level, because, I mean, it's so funny when you hear people talk about health care, when you hear people talk about tax policy and things of that nature, they have no understanding of how supply and demand relate, consumer relationships, regulation. Like they are so easily controlled and manipulated, which is, part of what the government likes. Who doesn't like an uninformed, functionally illiterate electorate? And so we're producing a lot of those in Tennessee schools, and especially, we're producing more than other counties on average here in Hamilton County because we're in a more metro area. And so there's nothing more I'd love to see, Yaffee, than the kids get what they deserve, which is a good, solid education in a indoctrination-free environment that's safe with discipline. Because it can mold a young person, or it can create somebody that's unemployable with a very dim future. And I'm afraid we've let the soft bigotry of low expectations creep into our schools, and it's alive and well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Now, you talked about you took a foreign language. What do you remember? Was it Spanish? Is that what you had to take?
It was Spanish, and I just remember that about the only thing I remember is that I thought our Spanish teacher was very attractive, and she was always very nice to me.
I don't think that was the lesson you were supposed to get.
And I had a Spanish teacher, but I don't even remember what she looked like or what her name was. But the other one I did not forget. So,
well,
that and my bus driver, Cindy Gonzalez, it was mighty attractive too.
Yeah, really? That never happens. But all right.
Yes.
I will say this. I actually liked my foreign language course because I took Latin, and it's not a spoken language, so there wasn't too much focus on that. But we had a really good teacher who taught a lot of history of, when it was spoken in the Roman Empire and all that stuff. So it was really the history that I found interesting more than the language. But I do remember taking Latin. Then I had to take Spanish in college, and you're right, language it's one of those things where if you're not using it a lot, you just kind of forget it. Like, it's something you have to keep using.
It would almost be like if these people said, "Oh, you want to learn how to ride a bicycle? Let's go in a classroom and sit for 2 years where we never actually get on a bicycle and you never have to ride it."
Yeah, that's a great point.
It's what it's like. I mean, the only way. I mean, it's very similar to the old redneck style of teaching kids to swim, which is to throw them in and hope for the best. And that really is how people tend to, with some classroom instruction and immersion, tends to be the only way people, because, I mean, until you desperately have to remember things and learn things in order to communicate with other people, when all your options are off the table, you tend to, people adapt, right?
Yeah.
But when it's unnecessary, when it's just this mechanical test taking thing that you do, people don't change. And there's a whole lot of activity masquerading as results in education right now, and we need to just get back to the results.
I agree with that. Brandon Lewis, founder of the Tennessee Conservative. You can read his stuff, see his latest interviews as well, podcasts as well at TennesseeConservativeNews.com. Brandon, I appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, buddy. Enjoy being on the show. Keep up the good work.